Want to watch football without the restrictions of blackouts or cable? Check out expressvpn.com to help you get access to all the live games. Sign up today using the link in the description to get 3 free months. Yo to Bolt fam, it's the director. Chargers fans, like every good TV show out there, guys, get ready for the filler episode. Quite honestly, I had planned on talking more about some of the stuff that we heard in recent interviews at minicamp, but I wanted to do this video first. It's one of my favorite videos to do in the offseason while we're waiting for training camp. My Chargers position grades. And forewarning to everybody out there, because I know I'm going to hear some discourse in the chat, be prepared for me to be a little bit more critical in this video as I do go through the Chargers roster position by position and hand out a letter grade. And it's not because I'm trying to be, edgy. I'm not trying to be more critical. It's because I want to give you guys my honest to God opinion on where the roster is right now before training camp, to see how that progresses and changes as we get into like the preseason games, right? How are these position battles shaping up? What are some, camp stars that have emerged, changed and shifted, in my opinion, in certain weaknesses that we had, maybe strengths that I thought we had, maybe weren't as much of a strength as we once thought, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So be prepared for that, man. Forewarning, trigger warning to everybody in the chat. It may be a little bit of a different experience on the Director Chargers channel today. But before we do kick into this, man, shout out to the sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Use code Director to match your first deposit up to $250. You know what they wanted me to do? They wanted me to let you guys know that newcomers not only get your normal specials, right? We're going into the, baseball, special here this weekend, but also, if you guys are looking for an awesome time to jump in, there are 2 specials going on right now. You do get both as a new customer, which is kind of interesting. If for you WNBA fans, you got the Caitlin Clark Angel Reese special, as well as, the baseball special if you guys want to jump in on that. Very fun way to support the channel, have some fun along the way, and a good opportunity to make some money, on this initial jump-in special right now. Before we do kick off, hit us up with a like and sub if you do enjoy this Chargers content. Small amount of time you guys take to hit the like, sub, bell notification. Helps me out a lot. Let's get into it, baby. Lights, camera, action. Your Chargers position grades pre-training camp. Training camp. Yeah, we're going to see a lot of content leading up to training camp, keeping ourselves occupied as it's fun to have conversations about where we think the team is headed, where they need to be in order to grow. But in this particular video, man, we're going to be going through all of the different positions. Oh, by the way, training camp. I think they just confirmed the dates, right? I think it's July 24th. We're going to be kicking things off there. The Costa Mesa facility, no more, right? They have this new facility going up called The Bolt that looks pretty exciting. I'm going to try and check it out myself as well. Looks awesome. State of the art. I know Jim Harbaugh was harping about it. He was super excited about it. But get ready for that, man, because that's where the real narratives really start to come down. Like, we're going to start breaking down some of the stuff that we've heard. We're gonna come back and circle back to that here in just a minute. But, man, you want to start looking at position battles where these positions really are shaping up, bringing in guys that were sleepers and unearthing potential because of the coaching staff, yada, 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 yada. That is where things become born. So very excited to lead into that. But before that, where do I think the roster sits right now? As a Chargers fan, as a guy on the internet who covers this sort of thing all the time, what is my opinion on where the roster is right now? And again, trigger warning to everybody out there. I'm going to be as down to earth, gritty and honest as I possibly can about this, because yes, the Chargers team isn't this perfect molded gem of perfection. Even in my eyes as a fan, there are places that we need to improve, and there are positions that are going to cause us issues during the season. And I'm very interested to see, where we're at right now versus where we are a little later on in the offseason, how these are going to be addressed. Okay, so to kick off our position grades, obviously we're going to go out with the quarterback position, which features Justin Herbert, Easton Stick, and then I do have some guys that I think may or may not make the roster. I'm just going to tag on there at the end of these positions. Max Duggan could be QB3 for this team. And quite honestly, I'm going to go ahead and jump to conclusions here. Spoiler alert, this is an A+ for me. Not all of them are going to be A+, all right? Trigger warning, things are going to get ugly. A+ for Justin Herbert. No, honestly, you cannot give position grades out to any team with a quarterback like Justin Herbert and give it anything less than an A+. Premium talent at the quarterback position is the most highly coveted thing in the NFL. Coaches chase it, as obvious, with Jim Harbaugh. Big reason why he came to the Bolts was Justin Herbert. There are huge contracts being thrown out left and right. Even at quarterbacks that aren't premium tier, like Jared Goff, we might see a Tua contract, sooner or later. But Justin Herbert's the cream of the crop, man. Like, this is what you strive for as an organization to have on your squad, and the Chargers have been lucky to have this kind of talent for a long time. As long as I've been a Chargers fan, there's been awesome talent at the quarterback position, something we've been pretty blessed with, right? Dating back, Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, now Justin Herbert. It's been an awesome experience. Now, how much weight do the backups hold? Well, that does play into effect in a lot of these different positions. With quarterback, I'm not going to weigh it down too much just because that's not something that you're anticipating to use. I'm not sure, not with any of the positions, but you know what I mean. Like, quarterback's one of those positions that you hope and expect to be on the field the entire season. Knock on wood every single time, director. But Easton Stick, he's shown to be okay in a pinch. Sure, he's not going to go out there and be, the next guy that wins you a Super Bowl from the backup position, but he's familiar enough with the team. And again, it doesn't hold as much weight for this particular position for me. So this is an A+. Chargers have one of the best in the league. A top 5 quarterback is something that every team in the league hopes to have. The Chargers are one of those teams lucky enough to have it. So now let's get into the meat and potatoes of these positions. Let's go into the running back position. And this is sneakily one of the most important positions on the new era Chargers. Okay, running back featuring Gus Edwards, J.K. Dobbins, who's featured on this photo, Kamani Vidal, and Isaiah Spiller. I'm also going to tack on Ben Mason as our fullback here. I could put him on the tight ends too, but I think it feels more appropriate here. I'm going to go ahead and give this position group, as of right now, a grade of a B. Okay, and again, very important position group. It's one that the Chargers are going to be heavily leaning on. And I think even dating back to when Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, who are, of course, ex-Baltimore Ravens, even dating back to when they were on that squad, I would have still given that duo, that featured duo at running back, a grade of a B. Both of these guys are awesome, right? The biggest thing that's drawing them back is staying on the field. I think that's basically it. Both these guys have super, great, especially working as a 1A, 1B kind of running back combo, a twin-headed dragon. Gus Edwards, he's the thunder, and then you got J.K. Dobbins, the lightning, right? They really do complement each other and give the Chargers really good running backs in both situations where you need to be a ground pound and, run the football up the middle kind of team. And then when you need somebody to operate with a bit more space, somebody that has to, operate a little bit more in terms of their agility and finding open space like a J.K. Dobbins, and then being able to take off with it. Dobbins has still got great speed. I've seen it, right? A lot of people worried about that first step. A lot of people worried about, the take it to the house potential in terms of speed. I've already seen it in the short amount of time that he's been exposed in mini camp. We're going to see a lot more of it come training camp, and I got to tell you, he looks crazy good. I've said this before, I'll say it again, and I'm probably going to do a whole video just on the potential of the Chargers running backs this season. I think J.K. Dobbins, to me, is one of those guys that I have a feeling on, right? Like, this dude's going to pop. We've been waiting to see it with the Ravens. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. If he can figure that part out, if Ben Herbert, of all people on planet Earth, can help him stay healthy, which he stands a very good shot at that, I think J.K. Dobbins could be something really special. I think Gus Edwards is going to be a very good running back. I think he's going to be a fantasy stud, if I'm being honest. He's going to get a lot of touchdowns with this team. But that two-headed combo is very nice. Again, the one thing holding them back is their health, and that's why it's going to jump down to a B. Okay, and they're not the best running backs in the league. Like, even if they're 100% healthy, you're looking at a pair of like A- running backs, B+ running backs. But they're very serviceable to what this team needs right now, and it's pretty good and decent talent. And for a position that all of a sudden you're going to be leaning in on quite a bit in terms of running your offense, you could do a lot worse than Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins. You certainly could. As for the backups, which do hold some weight, some significant weight for me, in this particular team, in this particular situation, Kamani Vidal and Isaiah Spiller, these guys do help elevate the grade just a little bit. More specifically, Kamani Vidal. Vidal has tremendous potential, right? His ceiling is up there as much as some of these, late round studs as we've ever seen, right? The dude looks on it. He reminds me of what's his name on the Seahawks? Kenneth Walker. I just looked it up. Kenneth Walker, right? He could be awesome. He could be great. And he's in a situation right now where the two running backs in front of him have had health concerns. Well, obviously, as a Chargers fan, as a fan of the sport, I don't want to see any injuries. I hope JK and Gus play a full 17-game season. I think that's the best case scenario for the Chargers. But the Chargers giving themselves the insurance to have another guy in there is pretty important because of the injury history of both of these guys. Right, the chances of JK and Gus making it to the end of the season without missing games, I would say, is not great. And Kamani Vidal makes me feel a lot better about needing to pick up some of that weight and carry it at any point of the season, because I think that he's got tremendous potential, right? He's that compact bruiser kind of running back that Jim Harbaugh loves everywhere he goes. He got that, Blake Corum energy at a discount. What did we get him in, like the 6th round or something like that? Very good value via the draft, but I think essential pick for this team that's going to be leaning on the run game with two good running backs in front of them that both have injury concerns. I think that carries a lot of weight. And as for Isaiah Spiller, which a lot of people have given up on at this point, me in some cases, I kind of feel the same way. Like, we took a shot, it didn't work out. He still does have potential as well. Because the Chargers, I believe, are much better built for his style of running now than we were just last season, right? This is going to be a physical football team, a man, blocking kind of, offense. It's going to be something more suited to Spiller's patient running style, right? A Le'Veon Bell kind of situation for Isaiah. I do think that it's something that is going to help elevate his game a lot. And ultimately, the Chargers line is going to help elevate everybody on the offense. But most of all, I think the running backs and the quarterbacks. So, grade of a B. I think it's a good situation to be in. Could be better. I mean, who knows who the Chargers go out there, maybe get Henderson next season in the draft, or Donovan Edwards, right? It could be a better situation, but right now the situation's not bad. It's not great. It's not bad. It's where it needs to be right now. So we're going to give a grade of a B. Next up, position group, wide receiver. Oh, man, I was looking for pictures of more than just Ladd. Wanted to see him and Josh, Palmer and these guys together. But ultimately, I need to continue planting my flag that Lightning Ladd is going to end up being the Chargers wide receiver 1 very quickly. I don't even know if he'll last, to training camp as wide receiver 2. He's just been that good with Justin Herbert. Everything we're hearing out of camp, everything we're hearing from every beat writer, every, talk show and stuff online, Ladd McConkey is just lighting the field on fire, right? He's leaving a trail of flames behind him as he gets open for Justin Herbert, which reflects, of course, on his speed. The Chargers and Justin Herbert specifically not used to that kind of speed, not especially since his rookie season, right? With Johnson and Guyton, that combo kind of emerging for him in his rookie year. But that's something that's really, really well complemented with Justin Herbert's arm. That speed is fantastic. But you tack on top of that the route running, the separation, the hands, which is fantastic. Lightning Ladd is one of the best wide receivers you could ask for if you're Justin Herbert out of this year's draft. A very good draft, mind you, of wide receiver talent. The Chargers, to me, got a first-rounder in Lightning Ladd to be that next wide receiver 1 for this team in a great situation for the Chargers and McConkey. In terms of what this system is going to look like, right? But Lightning Ladd's not going to be the only wide receiver carrying a grade here. Josh Palmer, who's also a very good wide receiver in my eyes. I would say he's a very, very, every team in the league would want a player like Josh Palmer playing at wide receiver 3, fringe wide receiver 2, right? Palmer has proven to be more than capable when called upon to be a wide receiver 1, sometimes in situations. We saw games where, Keenan Allen and Mike Williams were not available. Here comes Josh Palmer, the fantasy sleeper for that week. People winning, games off of his performances there. He really did, carry the torch quite well in those situations. And I think he's going to be a really good compliment here once again. I think a lot of people forget how good he is. They write him off because of the potential and excitement of faster wide receivers like, McConkey and even Johnston, Darius Davis even. But Josh Palmer is as well-rounded a wide receiver as you can hope for right now. He is going to get targeted a lot. He is going to be open for Justin Herbert a lot. And I do think he's going to have a pretty solid season. So those two guys right off the bat, I think we're in a good situation. It's outside of that I am a little bit worried. And like I told you guys at the top of the video, it may be a little bit more critical than you guys are used to hearing from me, but it needs to be said because we need to know where we're starting in order to know how far we've come, later on in the offseason. I need to see progression out of these guys to make me feel better as a fan. All right. Quentin Johnston right now, which we're going to say is wide receiver 4, maybe 3, depending on how the DJ Chark thing goes. He needs to show a lot of growth. Now, I'll tell you, as an optimistic Chargers fan, I feel like Quentin Johnston could, walk the path of Mike Williams, where he had a horrible rookie season, maybe misused a little bit, maybe not the best situation for him at times, and then take that year 2 leap where it's like, wow, okay, that's why we drafted Mike Williams. He's awesome. He's a red zone beast. Quentin Johnston could become the same thing. And right now I'm hearing, talk that it's going to happen. I'm hearing talk that the Chargers are way more aware of how to use him. It feels like Staley and company were forcing him to be the X receiver when he is certainly not going to be that for any football team, but instead use him more appropriately to his skill set. And it feels like that could really help elevate his second season. But we have to kind of see it first to believe it, right? As of right now, Quentin Johnston has a lot to prove. I believe in the potential and I believe in his talent, but I have to start seeing it translate in training camp, at least at the very bare minimum, right? Which we've seen before. And the last thing I'll say on Quentin before we move on is that Quentin Johnston, if you guys will remember, last year was a training camp darling. Like, this guy was on fire. Everybody was so excited to see his, but he was by far one of the best things at a training camp last year that got people fired up. And then went into the season and it just didn't translate. It's not because Quentin Johnston, in my opinion, is a bad player at all. It's because he was being used correctly in training camp. The Chargers knew what they drafted and they were using him appropriately in training camp. It wasn't until Mike Williams goes down that you start seeing Quentin Johnston poo-poo the bed. It's because he's being used inappropriately. He's being used outside of his skill set. They're forcing a square peg into a round hole. It's just not going to work. You know what I mean? So I think we're going to see a nice camp from Quentin. I think it's going to translate this season. But until then, it's not going to help our grade out. DJ Chark, I like the potential. I think I understand why the Chargers brought him in to be that X threat, right? But, I mean, he's not been the biggest impact target since Jacksonville. You know what I mean? Like, it could happen. It certainly, especially with Justin Herbert, being the best the best quarterback that he's worked with, that could certainly unlock some potential. I just don't know yet. Darius Davis is your returner. We might see some trickery out of him, in terms of the offense, but we still don't know. Brendan Rice has a lot to prove, and Cornelius Johnson has a lot to prove. So what I'm going to tell you guys right now is that outside of Ladd and Josh, there's just a lot of question marks at this position, which is why I'm going to give it a grade of a C+. Now, a lot of people are probably not going to like that. They're going to think that, oh, this is more of a B+ unit, A- unit. Like, Ladd is going to be awesome. Josh is going to be awesome. Quentin's going to have a bounce back season. I totally get it, and I'm rooting for it, and I believe that it can happen. But as of right now, I'm going to start us off at a C+ to see how much we grow through the course of training camp and maybe even preseason, right before going into the regular season. Okay, so that position has some room to grow. All right. Next up, let's go ahead and tackle the tight ends. Tight end position now featuring Hayden Hurst, Will Dissly, Donald Parham, and maybe a backup like Stone Smart. I think Zach Hines has a lot of potential to take that spot there. Either way, let's talk about some of the starters. I think right now, tight end 1 is going to be Hayden Hurst. Right? Last couple of seasons, Gerald Everett, I think, did a really good job. I think he did exactly what you were hoping for. He was a really good target. He put up some good numbers. This season, the tight end position, we need to shift our way of thinking what this position is going to look like, okay, in 2 different ways. One, you got to take some stress off of it because this unit is going to be asked to block a lot more. You fantasy football studs out there are going to be looking for the next big guy, with Justin Herbert, who's going to bring in the touchdowns. That's exciting, But I think first and foremost, when you're moving from a heavy passing offense to a run balance offense, you have to understand that these tight ends are going to be asked to block a lot. And in the case of Hayden Hurst, great pass blocker, right? He's going to get the job done there. Will Dissly was sneakily one of the best run blocking tight ends in the NFL. He's going to do a great job there. Donald Parham, to me, who's still going to be on the squad, is going to be a great red zone threat. I think every, coach in the league wants a threat like that. But it's going to be different because on the opposite side of the spectrum, the tight end position is going to be leaned on a lot more than we're used to. Right? In the past, you had targets like Mike Williams. You had targets like Keenan Allen. You had a very deep group of wide receivers that the offense a lot of the times ran through. So much so that even your running back could be considered a premium wide receiver. Austin Eckler was one of the best receiving backs in the entire league. He probably still is going to be that with the Washington Commanders. Right? This was a passing offense through and through. That's going to change. And in offenses that feature a lot of running, a lot more, the ratio is a lot more balanced there. The tight ends do get involved a lot more in the passing game. That's why you see guys like, Mark Andrews, have really good seasons, and George Kittle, like these guys that are a little bit more balanced, these guys that, have a little bit more oomph, they're going to be on the field a lot more. And in those situations, you're going to see those tight ends be asked to catch a lot. And I think Hayden Hurst, he has a lot of potential to lean back into what made him a first-round pick to begin with, to lean back into the potential of his receiving skill set as much as anybody in the league. But he's been a journeyman, right? He's gone from team to team to team to team, kind of, being serviceable. Sometimes a little lackluster because of his health, we'll be honest there. But he's been serviceable. Can that change with the Chargers? It can. Justin Herbert, Hayden Hurst, that connection's already looking really strong in minicamp. We have to see it translate a little bit more, right? I would say that his grade has improved over the course of the offseason so far. Like their connection and some of the skill set that I've seen from Hayden Hurst in OTAs and in minicamp have impressed me, that it has improved his grade a little bit, but I need to see a little bit more because this offense eventually is going to need its own version of Mark Andrews, its own version of George Kittle, its own version of, I guess, Travis Kelce a little bit, more of a Rob Gronkowski. Like, we're going to need somebody like that eventually. What can Hayden Hurst be for this team right now? I think a really good, segue player, right? A bridge player to maybe the next guy, like a Loveland. I would love to get Loveland out of Michigan next season in the draft. That's the kind of potential I'm looking for in the future. As for Will Dissly, I think Will Dissly, for me, is probably my favorite tight end on the roster right now because he is what you need at tight end too. A very physical, efficient run blocker. And I think he's going to do great for this team. And I think he's going to stick around a little longer than Hayden Hurst, if I'm being honest. Then Donald Parham is Donald Parham. We'll see, if it continues to grow into that big threat as far as a receiver. But this group does need work. Please don't hate me, but I'm going to give this position group a grade of a C because we have to set the tone here. We got to set the expectations to see how much we can grow, because Hayden Hurst could end up being a huge even fantasy football guy for a lot of people this season. But we got to see that progression, because right now it's still Hayden Hurst who's been a journeyman, and he needs to see something with Justin Herbert before going into training camp to bring my confidence up to even a C+. All right, next up, offensive line. This is where the Jim Harbaugh, Greg Roman effect is really obvious. Okay, because you'll take a look. I'm gonna show you guys again the offense in a second. Let's just name them off real quick. Rashawn Slater, first round monster guy. He's amazing. Zion Johnson, first rounder. He's got a lot of potential. We've seen a lot of potential so far in the offseason, my word. Bradley Bozeman, I saw more of a bridge guy. I'm hearing a lot of good things about him in camp. Trey Pipkins, a guy that's been up and down a lot. He shifts over to guard. Everybody, and I'm talking about everybody, is ecstatic to hear about to see his progress. I heard stuff from Greg Roman, certainly from Coach Harbaugh. Everybody is very impressed with his transition to right guard. Joe Alt at right tackle, first rounder. He's got as much potential in the world. Then you got the backups. Jamari Sawyer, amazing. Jordan McFadden, Brendan Hymas, Alex Leatherwood, Carson Barnhart, kind of depending on how things go. This is a very well-rounded offensive line. Dare I say, one of the best in the entire league. This is the best offensive line I've seen as a Chargers fan. Mind you, I've been a fan since 2006-ish. This is the best line I've seen. It is very good. I think in particular, those tackles are insane. Joe Alt's going to be amazing. Again, we have to see it before we can believe it. Again, he's transitioning to right tackle. He is going to be amazing. Rashawn Slater, we know he's amazing. Zion Johnson, we know he's good, right? At minimum good, right? Trey Pipkins, as much as people crap on him, he's been serviceable. He's been, not as terrible as people have said, especially in the last couple of seasons. He's elevated himself a lot. Bradley Bozeman, he's been up and down. He's probably the biggest question mark for me on this offense right now, which, again, I'm hearing a lot of really good things about him. He is my biggest question mark. Him and Trey Pitt are my biggest question marks. That being said, this line is really stinking good. And when you measure it against other offensive lines in the league, this is going to be one of the better ones that you see in the sport. And it's very obvious right off the bat what Jim Harbaugh is trying to do with this team, right? The best grades on this offense right now are quarterback, offensive line, running back. It is super obvious what we're trying to do. And this offensive line, it's not done growing, by the way. I do expect to see a couple of more players signed or drafted in the next couple of years to really beef it up. But not just the starters are great, right? You've got 2 Pro Bowl guys on each side. Maybe even Zion Johnson could, elevate himself to a Pro Bowl status. But Bradley Bozeman, Trey Pipkins are certainly not terrible. Like, this is an awesome unit. And then you take a look at the backups. Jamari Sawyer was an awesome tackle playing in in Rashawn Slater's spot the season he got injured. He's great. Jordan McFadden, Brendan Hymas, these guys have been praised, right? They're pretty dang good. I think in particular Jordan McFadden. Alex Leatherwood, former first-round pick, be it, not a great turnout, he could be a serviceable swing tackle. Carson Barnhart, who's been standout, a guy from Michigan, he could turn out to be great. I feel just like for the first time as a Chargers fan, this offensive line looks good, and the depth looks good too. Like, this is a strength of this team all of a sudden, and the Chargers are lucky to have him, and it's going to very much so affect every aspect of this offense. Herbert will have time to throw. The receivers will have time to get open. Edwards, Dobbins, Fidel, these guys will have space to operate. Hayden, Will Disley, these guys will have help on the, because guys, quite honestly, you've seen some of the best work from some of the best tight ends in the league that are playing next to really good tackles. I think Disley and Hurst are going to have a lot of success because of that. It's a great unit. I'm going to give it a grade of an A- because it's not perfect, right? Bozeman and Pitt, I have some questions. Zion Johnson, former first-round pick, does need a little bit of room, but those tackles, maybe the best in the league, maybe in the conversation for top 3. That is a very significant thing for this team. So, offensive line, absolutely smashing grade of an A-. They're going to be a very, very big thing to watch this season. Let's move over to the defensive line. This will be a little bit faster. I don't want this video to be like 50 minutes or anything like that. Defensive line, didn't see a lot of movement this offseason, right? I'll be honest with you guys. If I gave you guys a grade of the defensive line last offseason, it would have probably been like a D+. Like, Morgan Fox is like the only thing on that defensive line that I was excited to play. This season, you got Morgan Fox, you got Tito Ogbonia, right, who has proven to be very good when healthy. You got Poona Ford, who, let's be honest, that's a flying under the radar signing for me. Poona is actually very good. He's been very good for a while. He's not as old as we all think. He's a good bridge player. He's going to be solid, who you see on the photo right now. Scott Matlock, Justin Eboigbe, Christopher Hinton, maybe CJ Okoye. This line, who Jim Harbaugh says turned out to be a strength, right? He said he was a little worried coming in, and then it turns out this is actually a really good unit, a really strong unit of this team, a really strong position of this team. He says it's in a really good spot. I'm not so certain of that yet. I, as a Chargers fan, have seen this team get run on like crazy for how many seasons now? A long time. I've seen this unit really underperform before Linval Joseph. I don't even remember the last time our line was like a beefy, like super solid run-stopping line. It's been a minute. And I don't know if the Chargers have done enough to move the needle for me there. So I'm going to give it a grade of a C. I think this team needs a big signing at some point. I think defensive tackle needs to be a high-priority draft target at some point. It needs to be a big free agent target at some point. I just think outside of Morgan Fox, maybe Poona Ford, I don't see that big stud in the middle that gets me super excited quite yet. I think there's a lot of potential there, but again, I kind of need to see it to get my confidence in that position. Okay, so I'm going to give it a grade of a C. Moving on to the edge position. We've talked about some of the biggest strengths on this team already, right? Right now, it's quarterback and offensive line. Abso-freaking-lutely, you need to wedge in the edge position to the best among the Chargers. it's an A+ for me. And I'm starting with Thule because, mind you, Thule would be an amazing starter on any other team. Thule, number one edge for, different, NFL team, whatever. He would be really, really good. Anybody would pay good money to see Thule on their squad. He's amazing. He's our edge 3, y'all. He's our edge 3. In front of him, obviously, Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa. This is maybe one of the best edge groups I've seen as a football fan. I've seen better, obviously, but this is among the best. And not a lot of people are even aware, outside of the Chargers fandom, of Thule's emergence. Like, a lot of people are like, whatever, the Chargers are good. They got Mack and Bosa, but they don't know how deep we are. They don't know about Thule. They don't know about Bud Dupree. They don't know. I mean, yeah, there's other guys fighting for spots. We'll maybe put Chris Rumph in there for now, who I think is going to be challenged. This group is deep. This group is talented. This group is mean. This is going to be the biggest strength on the defense this season, and it may be the identity of this defense going forward. Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, Tuli Tuipulotu, Bud Dupree, that is ridiculous overkill. The rotation's going to be healthy. The consistency is going to be there. The talent's going to be there. The Chargers are going to run through the edge position on defense this season, and it's going to elevate, like on offense with the offensive line, it's going to elevate everybody on that defense. That pressure is going to give the corners and safeties opportunities for interceptions, right? It's going to give the linebackers more time or more opportunity to get to the ball carrier. It's just so much, ripple effect that you're going to see coming off that edge position. It's very intelligent for the Chargers to lean in on that, right? I didn't know if Mack and Bosa were going to return, let alone both, right? They both took pay cuts to be here. We also have Thule and Bud. Like, if the Chargers ended up rolling out with Thule and Bud this season, I'd be like, okay, cool. I think we'll be okay. To have all these guys is ridiculous, and the Chargers are going to be a wrecking ball of a defense this year because of them, man. It's going to be awesome. A+ for the edge position. Linebacker, which I'm going to be honest with you guys, okay? This is one of those positions where I was ready to hand out a pretty nasty grade. I was like, I don't know. It's been a strength up and down, but then we lose the player to free agency over and over and over. And so Kaiser White and Drew Tranquil, like, it's been like, okay, we got guys, and then they're just gone. Last season did not give me a lot of confidence in the position at all. But I'll tell you right now, I actually do feel pretty comfortable with where this position is right now. Denzel Perryman, we know he's good. He's underrated. Like, everywhere he's gone, he's been pretty good at what they're asking him to do, and is be that thumper, right? He's been great at that. Junior Colson, which, again, we have to see it to believe it. And that's going to be the same case with Dayan Henley, right? Both these guys, I think this is the future that we're looking at in this photo. These guys are going to be amazing. We have to see it. But Colson's situation is so unique that I can't ignore the potential here. Coming in from a system like Michigan and understanding it at the level that he does is going to give him opportunities to be a leader on this defense for many different reasons. And his talent is not even being mentioned in that breath. He's a very talented football player, but coming in to this situation, understanding the defense at the level that he does, because you're not going to see a lot of the instances where, your head coach and your defensive coordinator are coming from the same system that you played in, and you're that kind of player that's going to elevate them. You don't see that very often. It's a shooting star, right? Colson, I had to weigh that into the grade here. Dayan Henley is kind of a wait and see. I see a lot of potential there. Neiman is a great special teams guy. He's been good in a pinch. Troy Dye could be another good special teams guy. But I think linebacker's actually in a better spot than I thought it was going to be. I was getting ready to hand a C- to this position, if I'm being honest, guys, rolling into this video. But the more I looked into it, the more I thought about it, I was like, this unit's actually not bad at all. I'm going to give it a grade of a B-. It could be better, right? Not quite into that, like we're in a solid set, state of an A- or an A+, but it's certainly a lot better than I thought it would be. And I think a lot of it has to do with the stability that Denzel Perryman has brought to that position where he's been, and the unique situation Junior Colson brings. Okay, last couple positions, DB, specifically cornerback here. Chargers rolling out with Asante Samuel Jr., Christian Fulton, Jasir Taylor, Dean Leonard, Cam Hart, Tariq Still. Flat out, I'm going to give this position a grade of a C. Is that the lowest grade on this video? I don't know. It's not great. Now, that your saving graces here are certainly Asante Samuel and Jasir Taylor. Those two guys, I think are going to be solid. I think Asante Samuel is going to be great. Jasir is going to be solid. He has been very solid as a nickel since coming in. He's been shockingly good in terms of a late round pick. But the other guys, Christian Fulton is a wait and see. He's a redemption player. He's not been good. And he has the potential to be with this team. We have to see it. Dean Leonard has been ascending, right? He's been a great special teams guy. How would he play on the outside? I don't know. He has been good. He's been getting better, but we have to see it. I love the back-to-back picks at corner for the Chargers and Cam Hart and Tareeb Still. Like, that was awesome. Those guys have a lot of potential. We have to wait and see it. For that reason, I think, again, your saving graces in Asante and Jasir keep this from being like an F, if I'm being honest. But this position has a lot of work. There could be worse, but this position needs a lot of work, and I need to see a lot more. And it's going to be one that I do believe the Chargers, if you're asking me, hey, who did the Chargers take in the first round in 2024 or 2025, I'd be like, it's probably going to be a corner. That's how badly I think this position is needed. Okay. And lastly, at safety, the Chargers featuring Derwin James, Alohi Gilman, Tony Jefferson now, and JT Woods, maybe AJ Finley. This position group is flat out a grade of an A. You cannot have Derwin on any team without handing the position group a letter grade of an A. He is that big of a deal. He's that big of an impact player. He plays everywhere on the field at an elite level. He is an outlier player for a reason. He's absolutely insanely good. And also, who doesn't get enough credit, Alohi Gilman is very, very good. He's not just above average. He's not just a serviceable player. He's very good. And I think he's proven it not just last season, but at the tail end of 2022 even. Like, he's been so good for a while now that I can't say that he's just, this guy holding down the fort anymore. He's the guy. And he's been insanely good. And even the backup now, all of a sudden, like before, if you were to ask me, like, how do our safety, depth look, I'd be like, we'll wait and see. Let's see what happens with JT Woods and Finley. But now that Tony Jefferson's entered the table or entered the conversation, I feel very good about the depth. Tony Jefferson is an awesome veteran depth option for this team at safety. He's going to see some snaps, right? He's going to be out there with Derwin moving around as much as he is. I'm feeling very good about the depth. I'm feeling very good about the starters. It's a grade A for me. And lastly, to wrap up the video, special teams, we got Cameron Dicker, J.K. Scott, Josh Harris, Darius Davis, all outliers, all, top echelon of guys that you could ask for in the league. Dicker is as good of a kicker as you're going to find. J.K. Scott is one of the best punters in the league. Josh Harris was signed on as the best long snapper in the league, and he's not, faltered much from that title. Darius Davis, one of the best returners in the league. I think he was one of the best, if not the best returner in the league last year, right? Like, that group is awesome. Special teams grade of an A. All right. And that's going to give this team as a whole an overall grade of a B. Okay. So if you're to take the average of all of those positions, it's going to land us at B. If you wedge in what I would consider a big position of this team, which is coaching, which I give an A+, it would be a B+ team, but we're just going by the players right now. Overall grade of a B is very strong when you have a coach like Jim Harbaugh. And I wanted to set the tone here with you guys because, again, I want to see what happens when you take an average grade of a B and give it to a coach like Jim Harbaugh and see what it becomes over the course of the offseason. See what it looks like after, in training camp, going into the preseason. Like, what happens when you have that kind of coach on your team that can elevate players and positions that are maybe a little bit weaker? What does that look like? And to me, I think the potential is very high. So if you guys ask me, this team, it's actually in a lot better shape than I was thinking. I was thinking that this team was entering a soft rebuild, a retooling. We had a lot of work to do in the future. Starting here at a grade of a B, year one of Jim Harbaugh, it could be a lot worse. And honestly, it's in a pretty good shape when considering your strengths are quarterback, offensive line, and edge. When you talk about the highest paid positions in the league, what is it usually? Quarterback, edge, and offensive line. The Chargers have strengths in all three. I think it's going to be a much better season than people are anticipating, and I think it's a really good place to start if you're looking for position grades. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. If you like what you saw here, hit us up with a like and sub on your way out. We'll see you next time, and as always, bolt up, stay frosty, and get ready for this unit to shock your brains, man. I think it's going to be a good season.